So really good to see here and eavesdrop on a number of really great conversations happening in the break. So please do continue that through the next break and through lunch. But without further ado, we'd like to crack on with the agenda and welcome Mark and Sandra to the stage, our first contenders for Best Branded Speakers of the Morning. But they will talk about why data, or question why data and AI is still exciting, or is it? So please welcome them to the stage. Thank you.
Hello everyone, nice seeing you here. So we're going to talk about why data and AI is still very exciting. And I'm Sandra Calvo. I work as a customer engineer in the Google Cloud team here in Helsinki, which means basically I'm a technical expert in our cloud platform. But lately what has been mostly in discussions is everything around data in AI. And then we have Mark too.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, I'm Mark Bryan. I'm a principal architect at Google Cloud. I'm working with actually all of the customers here in the Nordics. And I'm doing the or is it part. So let's start with that. So okay, so we've been talking a lot today about how we're building composable commerce. Great talk on DevOps, by the way. Thank you for mentioning us there. But there's one thing we haven't talked much about today, and that is about our customers and how we represent our customers in our systems. And they're represented as data. So I think we've been on a bit of a journey. I'm not old enough to have started this side on punch cards, but I am old enough to be here in flat files. So I've worked in both retail and finance in my career. Big AS400 person, direct file updates, mainframes. Anyone still using mainframes as the core of their systems in retail and commerce? Show of hands? Okay, I've done my job well. And then we all moved on to kind of relational databases, right? So we started breaking these things down. We used to have like these flat files, and then we started getting clever. We started having like an order table and a product table and a customer table. So this is how we're representing both our business, our products, and our customers. And this really revolutionized how we've been working for kind of the last almost 30 to 40 years, I would say. We interact with our data using SQL. A lot of us still don't understand SQL. It's been around long enough. Then we started doing clever things like normalization. And this is still super powerful. This is still how pretty much we're interacting with our customers from our systems point of view today, right? We're writing SQL statements. We don't know how to write them. We write tickets to our teams. We ask them to do it for us. And I'm going to skip a whole part of history of these NoSQLs, graph databases, and all this other stuff, because, you know, that's just fancy stuff, right? And then we started thinking, okay, what are we doing with all this data? So actually, we started here in the middle with structured data, so data warehouses, right? So we kind of understand our data, we understand our customers, we understand our products. We want to collect it all together, so we built a warehouse. And we're like, let's stick it all in there. And let's scale that thing. And that's actually been the challenge now for the last 10 to 15 years, is that it was okay when we had these relational databases and they were all over the place. Now we've had to scale these data warehouses into these vast things. And then we introduced the concept of data lake. And we're like, why do we need a lake? What's a lake? The lake, this is more for your data scientists, right? So then you just put your data there, and then they can inspect that raw data. It could be images, it could be unstructured data, it could be anything, basically. And then people are doing clever things here on this side in the lake. So they're coming up with these really obvious conclusions, like, when the weather is hot, people are buying more ice cream. And you're like, I could have thought of that. Why is this data science, right? Like, and then we came up with the thing, okay, like, we don't want a warehouse next to this beautiful lake. We need to build a data lake house. Why? Because we need the same people that are coming up with the conclusions that people buy more ice cream when it's hot also need access to our structured data. So we need something that looks pretty next to the lake, so we can actually have that same tools to query both organize our unstructured data, because the problem we have here in the data lakes typically is they start turning into data swamps. People just throw everything in there. And you're like, I've got this data lake. And then you're like, I've got multiple data lakes. They're on-prem, they're in multiple clouds, they're everywhere, right? Like, so you end up with a data swamp. So the lake house, someone's there watching, making sure no one's just tipping in the data, right? So it's like a hybrid approach. So let's go on. That's kind of where we've been going. That's the journey. Embeddings. Wow, what's this? Who is using vector databases in their business today? Show of hands. Anyone? One? Okay, let's explain this. This is the boring part, right? So, like, just to be clear. So, what is an embedding? And I'm going to explain this, because you need to know this. This is going to be the hottest thing in the next 12 to 18 months. Lots of people in your teams are going to be talking about vector embeddings, AI embeddings. And you're going to be like, I don't know what they're talking about. But the guy at Google explained it to me. So, an embedding is basically a way to represent data in n space. Simple, right? N space, mathematical. So if we look at a really obvious example here, swimming, swam. Walking, walked. What we're doing is we're just mapping the data close to each other, to similar points of data. Vietnam, Hanoi, Japan, Tokyo. Super simple, right? It's not actually hard. What is this n-space embeddings mapping of data? Man, woman, king, queen. Although there is the band queen as well, so it doesn't have to be a king. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to map data not in a relational way, but in a way that we find patterns of things that are closely related to each other. So try and intuitively understand what are the patterns we can see. And so what people do is they start doing training on this stuff. Now, let me explain it this way. I am a customer. I like to read a lot of books. A certain type of book. So you're going to kind of map me and the books that I buy. Think of it that way, right? Like, I like science fiction. There were some science fiction nerds in the room already, I saw. So I like Philip K. Dick is one of my favorite authors, and I like Do Android Dreams of Electric Sheep. It's one of my favorite books. Love the movie Blade Runner 2. Now, how do you know what I might be interested in as a customer? Well, Arthur C. Clarke, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Very similar to the science fiction genre. So maybe I should recommend to Mark, he might also be interested in Arthur C. Clarke. So when we do a search on this data, we're going to find clusters of things together. So in the category of science fiction, we're not only going to find me as one kind of embedding, as a vector mapping, as a consumer, but we're also going to have a second. We're going to have similar mappings of books that are similar in that genre. So we can also recommend how Mark would maybe like to buy another book. This is essentially the science behind how you're getting recommendations on Netflix for what your next movie is, your next song that you want to listen to on Spotify, the next cat video you want to use on YouTube. Watch. We always talk about cat videos at Google. That's how it got started. So, this is the science that's behind understanding your customers. So the biggest thing in commerce right now is tailorizing to your customers, right? So you can have a blanket campaign on, discount Sci-Fi Week. But yeah, great, like, who does that target? Like, some people, all people. Next week it's another thing. So the ability to tailor advertising, promotions to individuals, this is what's creating customer loyalty to the brand, right? People are coming back because you're actually feeling you're adding value to them specifically. I love receiving in Finnish, it's like the Mainoksia, like in the posts are basically the junk mail. I still like going through it, but it's not very targeted, right? Like it doesn't know anything about me, it just knows where I live and I shop there once, so. All right. So what we do is we do a vector search. So your team are going to be talking about nearest neighbor search. That's how it actually does it, right? This is the bit that does it. So it's looking for the nearest neighbor of the item itself. This is almost more mathematical than yours, right? You thought you were going to confuse them. I'm doing a better job. So we're looking for these clusters of patterns in the data, right, using this technology. This is how things like LLMs and generative AI are actually working behind the scenes. They're looking for similar clusters of relevant data points and data sets to actually find. And they do it in an extremely fast way. What's really crazy about this is that your teams are actually going to be talking about how they're still using relational databases to embed these vectors into the system. So relational databases aren't going away. They're still going to be there. So yeah, it's called nearest neighbor. That's how it works. That's how we find things that are related to each other. How you give recommendations. So you use this to build recommendations engines. Ad promotion targeting. Semantic texture, audio search, question and answering. All of these key things that you're using today to transform how you engage with your customers, they're all powered by vector embeddings. So you might not know that's what's been happening. And actually, this has only become super popular in the last few years, actually. Generative AI has triggered a massive acceleration into an understanding of this. This was like, Dungeons and Dragons stuff a few years ago, right? People were like, I don't know what this is. So if you don't use vector databases or vector embeddings, I guarantee you will be using them. 100% of the people in this room will use this technology in the next 6 to 12 months. And you might already be using it, but the teams are just being really kind to you and not mentioning it. So. Okay, so yeah, it works also. Obviously, we see imagery, similar images, so there you go. Okay, but we're all trying to do the same thing, right? Like, we're all on this same mission. We're trying to read it, so we want to understand it, and make it useful. We have way too much data, right? Like, that's the problem in our business. It's not that we don't have data. Well, we don't have the time to read it normally either, right? Like, so definitely only a few people understand it, and that's the bottleneck in most businesses today. So it's actually the understanding it and make it useful. I'm not going to talk about bringing value from data. That's like another speech in itself. But yeah, like data is the new gold, essentially, right? But how to get this out of it. But what are the real challenges? Okay. I absolutely have these silos here. Right, data silos, business silos. Like, so that's really one of the core problems is our data is siloed. So how do you fix the silos? You kind of need a data economy. So let's quickly look at kind of your business. So we've got a couple of lines here, a business case, use case, some data tools, something set up, you've got some operations. Oh, there's another business unit as well. They're doing the same thing, by the way. Don't worry. But they're not speaking to you. There's not really kind of like, there's not much unique here. A lot of it is repeating, right? So your teams are replicating. They're doing the same amount of work. You're losing those efficiencies. I'm glad you mentioned Dora, because this is one of those things. So if we really look what actually is unique here, it's not all of this technology. It's the business case. It's the data. It's the data pipelines, like how you make use of that data and transform it. These are the only things that are actually unique in all of this. So there's a lot of noise here. So what we recommend, and to your point of how do you make more efficient teams and actually having, good data to make decisions on, you basically remove all of this stuff. And you put it into a central team. You let them handle all of that, and you focus on the business case, the use case, and the data. There's a lot of organizations in Finland that are quite advanced with this actually already. They're using data to make decisions. So if you're not using data to make business decisions today, you should be. The next step is using automation to make decisions based on that data. So there's no human involved, right? Your autonomous decisions are being made on data. You can only do that if you have good data. Make it accessible. So your other business units inside of your company will start relying on your data products to make decisions. So your team has to have their stuff together, right? They can't, oh, sorry, you shouldn't have used that to make the campaign in the spring. That was totally nonsense stuff. Like, we made a decision off that. So we need to have data products that are accurate, that are kind of, reliable. We need to share them, and you create a data economy. Okay, so obviously we all have this plan, right? We've all got the same plan. Phase 1, attract the customers. Phase 2, let's not worry about that. Phase 3, profit. So I think the big thing we see here in the middle is kind of, phase 2. What is that? We're all looking for that. You're listening to speeches here today, but we all have this same plan. If anyone's seen South Park, there's a reference here, but anyway. Okay, one kind of last point from me, I think, is that I guarantee every one of you has digitalization, transformation, and modernization as something that's in the annual report. Maybe it's in your business strategy for your own teams. Unfortunately, from my perspective, these are just byproducts of the actual problem you're solving for your customer. So if you're not tailoring your business and you're not solving a problem for the customer, digitalization is not a strategy, it's an outcome. Transformation is not a strategy, it's an outcome. And modernization, you just happen to fix things on the way, like going from punch cards from AS400, or the technology evolved, right? Like, it's not the core of what you're doing. It's solving for your customer. And I think with that, let's go on to the exciting part with Sandra.
Thank you, Mark. So, go ahead. So Mark has talked about all the things you need to solve to get value from data, to make data accessible. Now, I'm going to show you small steps that you can take into that direction and things that you can do today. And in Google Cloud, one of our missions is, of course, making things easier. So not everyone in your company needs to be a PhD data scientist to actually bring some value, and not everyone needs to know about coding to actually do things with data. We're making things easier. And one of the things that I wanted to show you is our Discovery AI. And this focuses on 3 categories. So searching and browsing, recommendations, and vision product search. So this will make clients help find things easier on your website, find things that they actually want or they're looking for, getting recommendations that are personalized to their needs and their search history, how they move in your website, what kind of things they click around, and at the same time having a vision search that it's, for example, if I like Mark's shoes and I want those colorful sneakers, then I just take a pictures and put it online and see what can I find that it's exactly like those or similar that I can wear and buy. So this is a very powerful combination, and this is something that you can do already now. It's based on a very simple data. It uses your product catalog and your user events data. So how people move around your website and what's your collection, what type of things you have in your portfolio. So if you wanted to build a recommendations model from data from scratch, you would just first find the data, check in what system the data it's actually in, then build some model, have your data scientist team trying different algorithms, do recommendations, see how it works. Then you have to train the model, create an endpoint for the model, put that model in your website, and test it. And of course, that's not something that will work forever. You will have to retrain it as new data comes in. You will have to keep it updated, monitor, and a lot of work needs to be done. So we're offering a shortcut, let's put it this way. So with data that's already in many of your services like Tag Manager and Google Analytics, you can import the data into Discovery AI, and import can be just uploading the file or just connecting to your tag manager channel, your merchant center to get the user events. You put that into Discovery AI. It learns as the users move and work and click around in your website, and then you want to build a recommendations model. And then here you have to select what's your focus. Do you want to increase revenue? Do you want to improve the conversion rate? Or do you want to improve the click-through rate? And this is selection in the menu. You don't have to think what kind of algorithm I want to use. How do I code this? This is a selection drop-down menu that you say, I want to increase revenue per session. And then you click train. It takes few hours, 1 day, max 3 days to train based on your data. And then you can put that model in the website, in the product category, product page, wherever you want, to test it, do A/B testing, and see how that increases the revenue in your platform. You get new data, that's fine. You can automate the training, you can train it yourself. And this is something that can be done in weeks. We're not talking about months, years development. There's no need to code, there's no need to have an extensive technical skills. You just need to understand your data and your customer. So there are a lot of things that can be done like this. And then, of course, Mark mentioned generative AI, and that's something that everyone has seen or tried. Has everyone tried some type of generative AI in the last 8, 9, 10 months? We have. So generative AI is the part of the AI and machine learning that will create content. And it can be text, it can be audios, it can be videos, it can be code. So how do we use that in our companies? And the use cases that we see more often and that we're discussing with clients is customer service, how, for example, the agents in the call center can access the data easier and quicker, how our consumers can directly access the data and ask questions about our products without having to navigate through a lot of documents. And then how can we generate content? Marketing campaigns. That's a very good one. How can AI help us generate a marketing campaign that can be more focused and customized to a certain audience, to a certain, I don't know, country, language, and use that kind of terms that make a difference. For that, we have in Google Cloud different capabilities. We have different models because at Google we don't believe that there will be a large language model that can serve all use cases. You will have different type of models for different use cases. And we have models focusing on pictures, on audio, on coding, on chat, on text. It depends on the use case. And this is a really quick example, but you can test everything without having to code, and that's the idea. So you can just say the Imogen model, raccoon dressed as a Rembrandt, and give some more input, ask questions, keep adding, tune the picture, and it can be, I have a nice shoe that I want to sell. You can put actually your real shoe, it doesn't have to be fake, and then just change the background, change the setting, change the colors to create the perfect picture that you want to create. And then I want to show you also how to navigate that data amount that we've collected. And I'm talking here about text mainly, structured data and unstructured data. So how can organizations find answers quicker? We all have a massive intranet. We all have a massive user guides, product catalogs that we want to navigate. So what we're doing here with search and conversation is that we put all that data into cloud storage. So we save that in the cloud. It can also be connected to different places where you already have the data. But let's say that we put that data, those documents into one place. Then we connect search. Google is excellent at doing search. We've been doing that for 25 years. So now we're actually giving that tool to our clients and saying, search in this data. So what is happening in the back, it's indexing the data, it's creating those vectors that Mark talked about, it's checking and putting all the data in a mode that can be easily accessible and searched. So when we clicked on the search bar and search for and ask questions in natural language, then we get the input. And what we get is a generated answer in as an LLM model that can give us the answer, and of course, then closest neighbors, where that answer came from. So this is very powerful. You can test it in Finnish, English, whatever language you want, in Convise search and natural conversation, and it can be also through a chatbot. For the sake of time, I want to mention a couple of use cases. If I talk about the Nordics, and the recommendations part, probably IKEA is one of the cases that everyone has once at least gone to a store. So they wanted to be able to recommend products better. And if you check the models on the recommendations on the website, they're excellent at store, recommending the perfect table for your setup. So now they're actually pretty good at it also online. And you can check, test it, and see what kind of things it recommends. It uses recommendations engine in the back. And for generative AI, for example, Carrefour, which is a retailer it's a French retailer, you've probably seen it if you've been traveling to Spain too. They have created marketing campaigns, and then they have trained AI based on their previous marketing campaigns. So they've put the marketing campaigns to the AI and said, now I want to create a marketing campaign for a new product, but I want it to be in the tone of my company. So it has to learn from the previous year's campaigns and create a new one just with one click. So grab us in the breaks, talk to us. We'll be very happy to help you get started and confuse you a little more with the vectors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much to Mark and Sandra.